Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first session of Sitecore User Group Ecuador. I'm Daniel Pastor, and thank you for joining us. This is session 16, and today we have a very special guest and with a very special topic, very interesting, especially for developers, now that we're starting to get our feet wet with headless development. So without further ado, let me introduce Richard, my co-organizer, to introduce our guest.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Richard Leva, and I'm the organizer of the Sitecore User Group Ecuador. And today we have a very special guest, as Daniel mentioned. Jose Neto is a Sitecore MVP, and today he will be talking about Sitecore Headless development using ASP.NET Core Rendering SDK. We're very happy to have you here, Jose, and please take it away.
Okay. So hello everyone, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share this presentation with all of you. It is my first time in Sitecore User Group Ecuador as a speaker, and I saw some good presentations from the past editions, so really great to be here. And the top presented will be ASP.NET Core and Headless Services. The purpose of this presentation is to give you an overview of Headless, to discuss and review the latest technologies available for a developer to start on this journey. So we will have a quick demo and also some time for questions and discussion at the end of presentation. So let me introduce myself. My name is Jose Neto. I'm currently a Sitecore developer at Nishtec. I'm originally from Brazil. My mother tongue is Portuguese. I'm based in Europe. I live in Estonia. The capital, it is Tallinn. And if you don't have any idea where it is located, the map on the slide might help you have an idea. The official language, it is Estonian, but English is well spoken in the country. It is very far from Ecuador. Here it's very late, it's about 11. And I've been working with this platform for the last 7 years, and also try to contribute to the community through my blog by sharing blog posts about problems faced by developers in the daily activities. This year, I was also awarded Sitecore MVP 2022. And every year, I also participate in Sitecore Hackathon. Our team won twice. Last time in 2019. And last one, we did a good contribution in the category best usage of Sitecore PowerShell, and I recommend checking out our model. It contains useful features for especially content editors, and also I'm looking forward for the upcoming hackathon. And I also saw a lot of people from Ecuador participating in the Sitecore hackathon this year. So hello for you all. So before diving into the topic, let's start with what is new in Sitecore 10 that you'll be using in this presentation. First, Sitecore made officially the usage of containerized environments. So as a developer, every time you download some new example, this will be shipped to the zip file as well. And the examples are already configured to do that. So it will make it easier to onboard developers in a team. And also, if you work with multiple projects, the environment, I mean, you have an environment that will be isolated. And if something goes wrong, you can just reset your container. You don't need to waste a full day fixing this. And the containers also brings stability to the developers' environment. So basically it brings a lot of benefits. And on this presentation, we'll be using Docker Desktop for Windows. The second important feature for this presentation, it is the Sitecore command line, also known like Sitecore CLI, which allows the developer to publish items, serialize, and synchronize all changes. It brings together features that we have in TDS and Unicorn. There's also a plugin for Visual Studio, and this gives you some graphical interface. The third feature, it is the headless with ASP.NET Core. So now we will be able to implement websites using headless and ASP.NET Core. It will be another option for developers, and we'll be using like cutting edge technologies. So why ASP.NET Core? Well, ASP.NET Core, it is an open source and cross-platform framework. So you can easily host your application in Windows or Linux. This can give you some flexibility in terms of hosting. It is lightweight and fast. And what is the advantage for Sitecore teams? Well, it is one of the ways of getting in touch and starting to use the Sitecore Headless services. And also the developers will be working with the newest technologies on the market. And another benefit is it will reduce the time of recycling the application. That's because there is some degree of isolation, and you won't be deploying all the code to the Sitecore instance. So if you're not familiar with the concept of Sitecore CMS, let's put this in a simple way. What is a headless CMS? A headless CMS is a system where the content that is in the headless CMS is delivered via APIs. It's called headless because the presentation layer is separated. So on this slide, we can see a clear separation between Sitecore instance and the website. This separation layers open us to a range of new possibilities and ways of usage the Sitecore content. On the right side of the slide, there is a watch consuming directly from Sitecore. So what is being consumed? The watch is purely consuming content from the CMS, but not wrapped inside an HTML. In this way, the presentation layer can be adapted exclusively for the watch. It doesn't need necessarily to have a website. And we are seeing a lot of proliferation of IoT devices, smart watches, smart speakers, and the content now should be delivered in many channels, not only in a website. This week I had to disconnect the internet cable from the TV, and the TV guide content just disappeared for me. And later I connect back again, and the content was there. So this is an example of getting content from a different channel. So a couple of years ago, we had the release of JavaScript SDK. This allowed the development of applications using the headless capability. For our Sitecore community, it was very exciting, but for a very specific public, it was even better. I believe if you were like a front-end developer in those days, you received the announcement with open arms. It was very good for front-end developers. It is easier for a team that's already working with front-end technologies like Angular or React to start learning a little bit of Sitecore and consuming the headless services. But for a backend developer, it can be a little bit tricky. But with the release of the JSS and a few more technologies were introduced, the layered service became available. And now the content and the HTML are decoupled. So it was possible to get the content in JSON format. But we must keep in mind that now the headless is no longer on JavaScript. And Sitecore 10 introduced the Rendering SDK. The Rendering SDK gives the capability of using the headless services in .NET Core. For Sitecore teams, it is another alternative of implementing headless websites. The SDK includes some features like tag helpers, module binding, and support for personalization, and that we will explore in detail on the session as well. It is important to remember that pieces of Sitecore are already developed in .NET Core, like the identity server and also the publishing service. Let's talk a little bit on how this works. The Sitecore layout service, it is an endpoint that provides JSON formatted Sitecore content. So headless services gives you the capability of getting Sitecore pages in JSON format. It is not just getting the Sitecore item, it's the whole item. And that means if there are renderings using personalization, that will also come in the file. Basically, the user or the application will make a call to a REST API endpoint, and it will return a JSON with a lot of information, like ID, page title, content field, and any other fields that it might have. Then the application will interpret that JSON content and make useful. So let's review the parameters necessary to make a call to the layout service. We will have the item parameter. It is the path to the item relative to the context side home item. We have the sclang. It is the language version of the item that you wish to retrieve. We also have the SC API key. The API key, it is a string that previously configured. It is a Sitecore item with the key there. We also have the tracking parameter and enables and disables analytics for the layout service invocation, and the default is true. And as you can see on the example, the layout service retrieves, makes a call and retrieves content. In the return will be a JSON result. This is a real example of a return from the API. On the right image, you have a Sitecore page using the sample item, and that comes out of the box. The fields that are visible for us here are basically the title, the text. However, if you begin to analyze the image on the left, we can see much more information, right? So let's review the output. First, let's check the field item called home. You can see it's on the marked with red, followed by the text field with a lot of content on it. Then there is the field title, Sitecore Experience Platform. We also have the field database name, and we have the web content on it. We also have the item ID, and you can also see the template name there. And we can see the sample item. So here we have another example of a return from the API, but now we are seeing a formatted version of the result, which is easier to us to understand what is going on. So we can see again the item path, also the language. In this case, it is English. And below, let's check some fields. We can see the navigation title. It contains property called value, and the content is home. So check the header logo property as well. This is a Sitecore image field, and you can see the properties like SCR, and we have the full URL of the image. We also have the alternative text, and we also have the with And all this will be used in the data model and rendered in the page later on. So in this slide, we can see a Hello World website in .NET Core. By looking into the list of files, we can identify new files and differences in the structure of the website compared to a regular .NET website. First, the www root. This folder contains the CSS and JS files. There's also app settings.json. In this file is being configured the level of login of the application. We also can see the runtime config. We can see information about the version of the .NET Core. We also can see the web.config, a very small file compared to our regular web configs. In this one is pointing to the main DLL of the project, which is the hello world.dll. So by looking for some characteristics, now I believe we can easily identify one website running on .NET Core. If you are familiar with the structure, and in case you have a Sitecore instance running on your local environment, you probably already have a website in .NET Core. In this example, we can see the Sitecore identity server. It is already developed in .NET Core. And by looking at the application pool, we already can spot a difference. The .NET CLR, it is selected no mentioned code instead of 4.0. On the right image, we can see the files that give us a hint that this website it is running on .NET Core as well. If you dig deeper on the web config, we also see the line that points to the main DLL of the identity server. Same standard that we previously saw on our Hello World. And here is just a quick test to see this website in action. We can do that by using basically a command line. First, you just need to identify which is the main DLL, and you can find this information by opening the web.config. So you can just open the command prompt and type .NET and space and the file name, and it will run an instance on the full port. You check the logs that been printed out for you there, and the same command, the .NET command, would also run in Linux for any .NET Core application. And this login will give you a good idea of what is happening to the application. And it will also get you familiar with the login structure that will be used in the rendering hosts later on. So let's talk a little bit about the solution. The solution is important for all developers, and it will be used on a daily basis. And how we're going to architect a solution inside Visual Studio? Well, the solution will contain code that is developed in .NET Core, and this code will be deployed on our .NET Core website. We can see this in the yellow arrow, and we also have the code that will contain we have the code that contains the backend and the front end, basically. So on the blue arrow, it will see the code that will be deployed to the Sitecore instance, right? So we have kind of a mixed solution here. And we cannot forget the solution will contain Sitecore items like templates, rendering, as it is common for any Sitecore solution. And this, like the renderings, of course, they will be deployed to our Sitecore instance as well. As a Sitecore developer, you are familiar with the usage of renderings. We have a bunch of them, like the controller rendering, the view rendering, item rendering. But when you're working with the Headless SDKs, we will be using the JSON rendering. This rendering also contains fields like the data source location, data source template. We are familiar with those fields already, but there are some differences that we may see. And these renderings bring some new fields like the component name and the rendering contents resolver. In this slide, we can see some real code in .NET Core using the rendering SDK. This SDK provides us some tag helpers, and those tag helpers will help us to render the Sitecore content. You can notice the syntax, it is a little bit different from what you used to do, but it is completely readable for any .NET developer. For instance, in order to render the title, we can see the usage for SC text, and this will basically render the title. For the usage of partial views, we can see the second tag helper being used over there. The code passes the model called contact. And on the right image, we can see the model binding action. Check how the content class is being mapped into the Sitecore fields. Since the information is being transmitted over a JSON format, we can see the usage of a JSON property matching the field name. In this case, it's the contact link and the contact image. The first Sitecore field, it is a hyperlink field, and the second, it is an image field. In this slide, we'll explore a little bit more of the tag helpers. The image on the left, we can see an implementation of a layout, a document that contains all the placeholders for the page. It is possible to recognize the tag by the name. We can see the header, the main and the footer placeholder, pretty much what we are used to do. And on the image on the right shows us implementation of a component. On the first arrow, we can see the usage of SC link. It is the hyperlink tag helper. And just below the SC image, it is the image tag helper. So one of the features used constantly by the content authors, it is the experience and editor. And you might be wondering, now that you have two hosts, how the experience and editor will work? Will that work? And good news, it is yes. This scenario is covered by the rendering SDK, and it will work. Content editing tool will not be affected. It's important to keep in mind the front-end elements and files are not in CM anymore. Therefore, Sitecore CM needs to communicate to the rendering host. And there are configuration parameters that Sitecore will read, and we'll know how to contact the rendering host. Basically, when you open the experience and editor, the CM performs a post to the headless services endpoint. And this is provided by the SDK, which will bring the HTML with the necessary elements to display the experience and editor. So how this new implementation will look like? On our server, we have the identity server, the XConnect, the Sitecore instance, and now we have another website. And this will be the .NET Core website. This new website will be able to communicate with the Sitecore instance. In order to do that, we'll need to set up some configurations on the app settings. This file will contain fundamental parameters to enable this communication. So let's check some parameters. First, there we can see the instance URI, which it is the URL of the Sitecore instance. Then we have the layout service path. We also have the default site name, and we can see the API key very important. But we also have the enable experience and editor parameter. This will tell us if the rendering host will support the experience and editor or not. And finally, we have the rendering host URL. Now that we have our new website configured, we can see a front and a backend instance. And the decouple is pretty clear. Let's remember that the rendering host contains code in .NET Core, and it can be hosted by Windows or Linux server. And how the front end communicates with the backend, it is through API calls. So the front end will make a call to the headless services, and it will provide the output in a JSON format, and the page will be shown to the user. In this image, we can see an X-ray of the layers. Let's understand how the rendering host works. The visitor sends a request to the web server, which activates the rendering host web app. Then, the layout service client fetches the relevant content and the presentation data from the Sitecore Headless services. Then, the layout service client passes the data model to the rendering engine. Then, the Sitecore rendering engine renders the data model and your code and static resources into the final response and returns to the visitor. So, how to get started? How to get started in all this new word. So the first example that we have here, it is the get started template. It's very simple and basic example. And you can download the template directly from your PowerShell by typing the command listing on the slide. It will create a solution. It is well documented in the Sitecore docs and is also being explored on the Sitecore training. The second example, it is the Sitecore MVP website. This site is currently live, and if you apply to the Sitecore MVP, you use this website as an user. This is also a very useful resource since it will provide you examples on how to implement components. And the third example, it is much more robust. It is using Helix conventions, and that's the one that we'll be exploring today. The website contains good examples, and it can be very helpful for all the development team. We must keep in mind that all examples will come with Docker configuration files, so you don't have to bother about the instance. All CM, CD, and all the infra will be all taken care of. So setting up. So the first thing that you do is download one of the examples. And after downloading, we run some PowerShell commands. The first command that you run, it is the init.ps1. And in this script, we will define the path of the Sitecore license. And we can also set the admin password. So write down that and don't forget. And the second PowerShell script we'll be running will be the up. Or the up, you can see on the right image. So this will run the Docker Compose up plus a few other commands. It is also important to mention that we're going to see the Sitecore CLI in action. And we're going to see Sitecore items being pushed, the project being compiled. It's going to take some time to rebuild the indexes and to publish the whole website. So now that you have all the commands to initialize the containers, we must ensure that they are working. So for that, there are three ways that you can check the running. The first one will be using the PowerShell by typing docker psa. This command will give you an overview of all active containers. Since we download this example, on the left image, you can see the container ID and the image names as well. But if you're not much into PowerShell, you can just open Docker Desktop. And as we can see on the right image, it shows all the containers running. We also can identify by the color of the icon that's working. We also can see the ports that are being used. But there's also another option. You can use your Visual Studio. There is a tab on Vion and other Windows containers. And you'll be able to keep an eye on the containers and also see the logs and some other information. And you can also, if you want, manually stop the containers from here. But of course, I would recommend you to use a PowerShell command. So there are some dependencies, and running these examples, you can run into some troubles. So if you're installing in a clean machine, or maybe it is your first contact with the .NET Core, you probably will see the following issue. This means that you don't have one the fundamental dependencies, which is the .NET Core SDK. And one on the top of the slide, there is the URL that you can download. Just in case you face this issue, you can install this dependency, and probably things will solve by itself. And then you're running some PowerShell commands. You're going to wait the Docker, start the containers. The containers will be up. And after waiting for some time, all this action will happen. And we can check some hosts and see some URLs being created for you. And the first one, it is the CD server. Then we have the CM server. We have the identity server. And the last one, it is this new one, which is the rendering host. And this one, it is the server that we had the .NET Core code deployed, right? You're used to have just the code being deployed to our CM and CD. But remember that with the rendering host, now we are deploying code also to a new server, which is the rendering host. So we must keep that in mind, that the code will be deployed in two servers or three, two hosts, right? Rendering host, CM and CD. So on this slide, we basically run a PowerShell command in order to get the logs from the rendering host. As we saw in previous slides, when a visitor loads any page on the rendering host, we already know that, and that there is a call that's being triggered to the Sitecore CD server. This call is marked for you in yellow, and we explored this call before. And we can follow this process by looking by the rendering host logs. In case you have an issue with your code, this log will be also your friend, and it will give you a hint of what's going wrong. If anything starts to happen on your rendering host, the best way is just keep an eye on this log. This will tell you everything that's happening, all the issues that you face. It's very helpful. And the last step is to basically visit the website. So after that, the URLs should be available. The first page will be the home page. And on the right side, we have a product list. And you can navigate through the website normally and later check the implementation to better understanding how things were implemented. And if you downloaded the MVP example, the process will be very similar. In the end, you'll be able to see the same website as the live MVP website. And I created here a page called test, just to make sure that things are working. And you can see the link on the right corner. And if you want to contribute to development of this website specifically for the Sitecore MVP, you can. There is a list of bugs and features that need to be implemented in this website. You just need to download the code there, and you can start helping the development and helping the community as well. This can be a good exercise to, start this journey. So after speaking for half an hour, let's do a quick demo. And in this demo, we will review the zip file. We are gonna review the solution and discuss the solution. We are gonna review the logs on the rendering host. We're also gonna review the layout service call. And we're gonna review the structure of the website. So let's get started. So first thing in this example, you download the zip file, right? You download the zip file. And after you download the zip file, you're gonna see this folder. Oh, just 1 second. It's this, yeah. And then let's open the files, right? So you're gonna see a couple of examples. And this example is the ASP.NET Core. When you unzip this, we are gonna see some files like the init and the up command, which would be like PowerShell scripts. And then we can see the Docker folder here. So we're seeing that the examples from Sitecore, it's coming with the Docker examples. Everything is already set up for you. So you as a developer can just get started in a very easy way. The second thing that we're going to review, it is the solution. So let's open the solution. It's loading, and I will move to the correct window. Just a second. So we have the solution. It's taking some time to load. First time that I'm loading this solution. And let's review a little bit here. So we discussed before that we have a mixed solution, right? So here you can see the project that's called .rendering, and we can see another one that's called .platform. So let's open the properties of this one. This one, we can see the target framework. The target framework, it is the .NET Core. So here we're gonna have code that will be done in .NET Core and will be deployed to the rendering host, correct? And the other one we're gonna explore as well. And let's open the properties. And here we're seeing the target framework. The target framework is .NET Framework 4.8, which is what we're using to do in our Sitecore implementations, correct? So here you're gonna have code that will be deployed in the Sitecore instance. In this case, the CM and CD server. So that is what I was talking about. We have like a mixed solution. So Sitecore solution will have code in both in .NET Framework and also in .NET Core. So keep that in mind. So other thing that we're gonna review here, it is the rendering hosts logs. So when we are working with the rendering host, and you're of course using containers as it was provided in the example, you'll be keeping an eye in this log a lot of time. So by looking into this, we can see the JSON content return from the rendering host for us. And we can see our components here. The same way we saw in the previous slide, we can see the component name, the data source, the parameters, some IDs, here text and the value, and here we have an image as well. But one thing that I would like to explore, it is the call that is being made. So when you enter the rendering host, as I said before, the rendering host will make a call to the layout service, right? So it's making a call to the CD server. So here we can see this call that's being done, right? And we can basically see the result here. So we can see what's the rendering host is showing to us. We can do this call manually on the REL, and you can see the return as well. So now that we reviewed a lot of these things, let's review the CM instance. All right. So we open the example. We have our CM instance here. This example will provide you a couple of pages. We have, of course, the home page. We have a list of products. This will be very useful for you. And we also have the service pages. And this example is more robust. So it's using the Helix architecture. If you downloaded the MVP website, I think it was using as well. But the getting started is pretty simple. So you'll not see that. So here we're just going to review the JSON rendering. So as I said before, we have a lot of renderings on the Sitecore, the view rendering, controller rendering. But in this case, for consuming the headless services, we will be using the JSON rendering. So here we have a new field, which is the component name. This is very important. We have some fields that you saw before in other renderings, like the data source location. It is the same. The data source template is the same. Experience and attitude buttons, the same. We will see a different field here too. But this is the one that I will talk about just a little bit. We have this tab, layout service, and we have the rendering contents resolver. So this field is not present in the unknown in the controller one, in a version that's not headless. So there are a couple of new things here that you need to keep in mind, and you want to explore that as well. And now we can just check the website. The final result of this example, it is the live website, right? So here I'm running the website. Just to double check, I wanna check if all my containers are working. They're all up, so the website should be working. We're gonna see the services, a list of services, normal Sitecore website, the products, it takes some time to load it, but yeah, it's there. So we have the product list. We saw the content on Sitecore tree. And back to the home page. So in this demo, the idea was to review like a couple things. So we did that. So I think basically that's it. So let's get back to the PowerPoint. We did the review. We reviewed the zip file, the solution, the rendering host, also the layout service, and the website. So this demo is also available on my blog. It contains the step-by-step as I demonstrated here. It also contains the links. And if you want to know more about Estonia as well, I took a part in an interview for an article about Tallinn for the travel section. You can also check it out. And well, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation. And thank you for the organizers of the event as well.
Thank you very much, Jose. We currently do not have any questions on the chat, but I do have a couple. So how steep is the learning curve? Like, let's say there's a Sitecore developer, right, who has not seen the rendering host or like Sitecore Headless, nothing, right? How steep of a learning curve is that?
Well, I think, well, we have I had two experiences with like a developer that, like, for instance, never use containers, and some of them that are already using like Sitecore containers, they are already using the Sitecore command line. And I saw different learning curves in those two kinds, I would say, of developers, right? That developer that is coming from the Sitecore, that unfortunately he didn't have the opportunity to work with the like Sitecore CLI and the containers, and he still have this learning curve to and I kind of struggle to set up those examples and to see how all those new features inside Core 10 connects. So this can take some time to learn. But once they have this like the example running, the code is similar. I mean, they can with some time. I mean, the examples that we have, they can go through the examples, try to make small changes on the examples, and they start to have some problems. They end up like overcoming those problems, and it will be okay. But so I had basically those two kind of developers working for me, and they had different learning curves. But when they starting with the .NET Core itself, so they're all like the same level. They're both like being able to use Sitecore 10 features. They start to like pretty much being able to create components to make those things to work. So I think the main point here would be this developer to get started like with Sitecore 10 features, you know. So I would be better if he's like already, you know, with some knowledge of like Sitecore CLI with the containers and that. It can be also a case that I don't know, maybe you want to you use like on a Sitecore instance that you already have on the local and create a new website, right? So you have one website running on same implementation that you're used to do, but you want to create a new website on this Sitecore, and this you wanted to use the rendering host concept. So you wanted to do that. So this takes some time, but it is possible to do this too. So like kind of converting one solution. So
Right.
let's say that you have like a small website that using I would say the old style, but you want to try to do some kind of exercise and try to convert a solution for this. This is an excellent exercise. So I would recommend to do that.
Awesome. That's good to hear. And then the other question I had is, how well does personalization work, like with all of this?
The SDK is made to support personalization. So one of the parts of the SDK is to keep the personalization. So when you personalize a page or a component in a page, it will work. When the call is from the rendering host is being made to the CD server, and the return that will come, it is the JSON output. In this JSON output, it will come the content the personalization had. So it will support. So this is a very important question. I mean, because you will think, oh my God, I mean, I'm gonna try to use this, and am I gonna lose all the personalization features? And no, the SDK it supports the personalization features, and it is important to keep this, and it will work. Yes, and
Awesome.
so it works pretty well. No problem.
Cool.
Thank you.
And I guess just one very last question. Well,
Sure.
it was very eye-opening to see like you know, this mixed solution and the separation of the traditional .NET Sitecore instance and the .NET Core layout layer. And I think you show us that, for instance, you know, this approach is Helix friendly, you know, on the Sitecore instance. How about on the presentation layer? Like, do you also recommend? Do you also like, you know, have like a Helix friendly approach when creating like feature areas and things like that on the presentation layer on the .NET Core solution?
I think in this, let's review the solution here. I think in this example, let's see how it is being done here. I will try to keep the same way we are having here. Can I? Well, it is implement the Helix in general. This is the Helix example. So I will try to use at least the same idea that we have here. So I would say in terms of the front end, I would add one thing to the discussion. It is when you're developing with that, it's faster. So let's say that you are just developing and make changes on the VM, right? So just basically the CS HTML that you are making changes. So in this case, you are deploying to the rendering host, right? So when you're deploying to the rendering host is in .NET Core, so it is much faster. So you're not to recycle the pool for the Sitecore instance. So that's kind of makes the developer happy because it's not like, you know, oh, I just made a small change. I need to recompile everything again. and that infinite time that it's taking, right? So I would say that in this era of would be the best. I mean, good news for a developer. No, I mean, I know that can be scary in a way that okay, then I have to deploy in two different hosts, but deploying just in the rendering host make things easier. You know,
Gotcha.
it's faster and this is really good. And you're seeing when you develop on this, when you have to do changes in the back end, you're gonna think, oh damn, you know, I have to deploy there and it's gonna recycle.
Gotta wait for
And
the recycle and everything. Yeah.
yeah,
You know the pain.
and you're trying to avoid, you know, as much as you can to do changes there. And when you're doing changes on the view, you're just like happy and say, okay, it's just HTML. It's just a quick refresh, and things are gonna faster. So, but yeah, I mean, I would say try to keep things something similar that we have here, and I think you'll be happy starting on this journey as well.
Cool. Yeah, I think as backend developers we're gonna get spoiled, and then
Yeah.
we won't want to wait to, go back to the development and wait for recycling the whole site for like a small change.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
we're gonna get
When I started with this, I start to see like it's a little bit faster, and I don't know. It's really cool this separation. I mean, it's on Sitecore course. This subject as well. It's very. I mean, Sitecore has put some effort on the course as well, so it's part of the Sitecore transformation. So I think this it is pretty cool for developers, and I believe everyone who will start to this journey like soon, they with some time. I mean, the beginning they will be okay, it's changing some things here, some things there. But with after some time, they will like end up enjoying and have the same fun that they have, developing I would say the old style. But it's pretty fun and cool.
Awesome. And then we have one question on the chat. So Edison is asking, like, with your years of experience, for someone who is a newbie on Sitecore, what would be the first steps to start learning Sitecore at a junior level, right? Because I mean, all of these things right now, like the rendering host, like Headless, personally, I think that developers need to have a strong understanding of the platform itself before delving into things like this. But I'll let you answer the question.
Well, if it can go two ways, right? Yes, of course, it's really important to get. Understand the platform. It would be the basis. Like have a deep understanding of how things works inside Core. Understand as an end user point of view. And then after you have that in your mind, you can start the development. If you never develop it and you're going to do like a Sitecore course, if this will be offered for you as an option, you will be mandatory seeing this content as well. So you'll not be able to I would say skip that or keep that learning far. But if you maybe not have you're not going to jump in the development on Sitecore 10. You're starting with development maybe in projects that already exist. This may take some while until you start this journey. So, but it's important to keep in mind that if you start to do maintenance on these projects, sooner or later, this will come to you. So keep that in mind. I mean, you can of course start developing with the way we do it with MVC and all those things. But I would keep that in mind that eventually, we'll maybe see some projects in near future that will demand that. Headless is like a hot topic, and sooner or later, maybe the clients will demand. I want headless. I heard about that, and I want my site be headless. So how can I do this? And they may sell the project, and you might getting up, in this learning curve again, right? So you're like learning a lot of Sitecore, and now things are changing again, and you need to learn again, right? But I think it is. I mean, it's as a .NET developer, a Sitecore developer. I mean, the shape is the same, even though the things change a little bit, but the overall shape is the same. So if you have a good understanding, you'll be able to quickly identify the differences. You're going to spot the difference, and you start to learn.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cool. And I think we have one more question on the chat from Paul. And he says, experience editor stays the same as we're used to, correct?
Yes. Yeah, the experience editor, it is the same. The thing is, in terms of architecture, I mean, it changes how things are done. Because when you load the experience editor, you are in the CM, right? You're connected to CM instance, and you're gonna click experience editor. But in the back end, things are different. At the final result, you're gonna see the experience editor. I mean, things will work if everything is like configured normally, all the access, certificates, all those things, it will work. However, the way to do this is different, because the CM server will make a call to the rendering host as well, and the rendering host will return things to the CM. So the CM server points to the rendering host, and the rendering host points to the CM server in order to make these things to communicate. Because the CSS, all those things are not in the CM anymore, right? So when you open the experience editor, the files they were over there on the CM, so they just get the CSS files there and load it for you. But now they're not there anymore; they're on another server. So they will make a call to another server to get these files, right? But it will work if everything is set up correctly. I did this exercise. I mean, of course, the Sitecore provides you the Sitecore containers. I mean, with everything already configured, makes really easy. But I did this exercise of doing that completely manually, like file by file, to understand what are the problems. You know, like, oh, I forgot to configure this. What's gonna happen? You know, then start to break, and then start to fix. I mean, it's a very detailed thing, and unless you really want to dig into this, you can do it. But the examples are everything like configured, and Sitecore, it will work. I mean, the Render SDK keeps this compatibility, not going to be removed, so it will work. You can do the add components, remove components, same way you used to do.
Awesome. So I guess from a content author point of view, it's going to remain the same. And I guess as a developer, we just have to make sure that there's like this two-way communication between the CM and also the rendering server, especially for Experience Editor.
Exactly. I mean, if something is not 100% configured, it might break. So I did that manually, all this configuration manually, just to see things working, and I saw that breaking as well. But once you, figure out how things do, you start to learn the configuration files, and or you just get, I mean, you can get examples, but when you're going to start a new solution, you're not going to rely on examples. You have to create by yourself. So you're going to create all the files by yourself, and eventually you're going to see, oh, I missed this one, I missed that one, and why is this not working? And you, like, as a solution architect, you'll be get in touch with all the files, you know. But if the developer gets a solution with everything already done, he may not see all this, the configuration that's being placed there, but they will be there. You know.
Right. And have you used Horizon with the rendering host as well?
I didn't configure yet that on the same. All right. No, I didn't. But yeah, I mean, the Horizon, it's another ASP.NET course website that you will create, and but I'm not sure, actually. I'll need to check that, but I'm not sure if Horizon is full compatible. So that's can be a good question. I cannot guarantee that's there is this compatibility with Sitecore Horizon. I don't remember of seeing that, so it would be a good thing to take a look.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Thank you very much, Jose. We don't have any more questions from the audience. So thank you very much for being here. It was an awesome session, especially because it's one of the hot topics in the cycle world, right? So thank you very much again for presenting and yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel.
No, thank you very much. I know it's almost midnight for Jose in Estonia, so to share his time with us, it has been great. And yes, as Richard mentioned, this is a very interesting and hot topic, especially in the world of Cycle right now. So yeah, thank you very much, Jose.
Yeah, thanks. It was my pleasure, and see you guys next time.
All right. Thank you.
See you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
And keep up with Sitecore user group in social media. You'll see the links to our social media in a second. So thank you very much for joining us. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.